Hello everybody, this is Vince and Hugo from Fractal Universe, and today we're going to be discussing our newest single, A Clockwork Expectation, and have an in-depth analysis of the song. So we're going to look at the theory and the production of the whole new single, and I hope you guys will enjoy.
Hello guys.
So basically what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the part. I have the Logic project in here with all the stems and everything. So we're going to have a look at that, listen, and then maybe we're going to dissect some of the theory being used, some of the arrangement techniques, and what makes this part work the way it does, basically. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the extended version of the song, the album version, with the intro that you may have heard in our playthrough video that we released on Monday. I think it was the first time that you guys were able to hear this intro. Okay, so let's basically listen to it in Logic here.
Hey, Piotr.
Hey. So basically you can hear it starts out with only drums, and it exposes our main rhythmical idea. More to that later.
Hello Claudia.
Then it is joined by the bass guitar. Basically this part is a long build-up, with each instrument entering one after another. Now the guitar kicks in, and now the second guitar kicks in, doubling what the bass is doing. And all this part builds up to this moment here that we just started listening to. So maybe some of you guys are new to this section, but yeah, this is the intro we choose to leave out for the sake of having something that wouldn't drive people away because, you know, short attention span and everything. But yeah, this is basically the intro. So what's happening here, as I said, is that each instrument enters one after another. So here I'm on Guitar Pro, and we're going to have a look at how this all happens. So you can see here in the beginning, we have only drums exposing our main rhythmic idea. Dun, 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 ga, dun, 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 ga. So basically you have these accents here that are going to be present everywhere throughout the song. So this is what we're going to call rhythmical idea number one, I say. And it's used, as I said, really in many, many riffs of that song. Basically then, after we got a full turn here, the bass kicks in and basically doubles all these accents from the toms. Basically what the bass is doing is this. And so on. So first thing you should know about this song is that it's in the time signature of 6/4, and each beat, as you can see, is divided into triplets. So we really have that triplet feel: 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a decata, all throughout the song. So we are really using these kind of shuffle grooves, and you can see it in the bass here. We have a lot of these third triplets being accented. So a lot of that kind of rhythms are happening throughout the song. And just so we finish with the rhythm, we have this section that is rather simple here, and the second ending is a little bit more complicated in terms of the accents. Here we have something a little weirder in terms of the rhythm, with a little stop here that falls on the second triplet. So that's kind of an element of surprise that brings us to a second variation, basically, in this basic groove. So let's have just a look at the notes now that are used in this part.
Yes.
So basically we are, I think it's kind of obvious here, in this key center of D, because you can see it, this note here is really the one we gravitate around. And basically the other notes are going to be approaching that note from above, descending a scale, and also from below, but we are always surrounding that target note of D here. And one thing that is worth noticing about this bass line is that basically you have the low notes doubling the tom and kick hits. You can see it here, for example. And each time there is a snare on the fourth beat every time, we play a treble note on the bass. So I'm going to play the bass line again. So you see every time the snare hits, we have that note popping out on the bass. And that's really something I love to do when I write bass lines. Have the bass really mirror what kick and snare are doing. You have the low notes doubling the kick, and then some more treble notes doubling what the snare is doing. This gives really a nice effect to and really highlights what the drums and bass are doing together. So in terms of the notes now, what we are doing here is using, I mentioned it, the key of D, and more specifically, kind of a key of D half-whole diminished scale. So this scale goes like this. It's basically half-whole diminished. Everything is in the name. We start from the root, go up a half step, then a whole step, and then we repeat. Half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And we're back here. So this, you see, this is kind of a symmetrical scale that contains 8 notes. And the symmetrical side of it makes it very suitable, especially for guitar players, where you can just repeat the same patterns at different places on your guitar. And yeah, that makes it very convenient. So half-whole diminished scale in D here, basically. Okay, as I said, then each instrument enters one after another. And when the guitar kicks in here, this one, maybe Hugo, you can play it for us.
Of course.
This is the first time we're going to be introduced to what I will call the main theme, the main melodic motif of the song. And again, this is one, like the rhythmical motif we just explained, that is going to be found throughout the song at different places, used in different contexts, and this is how we are first exposed to it. So in terms of rhythm, you can see it's fairly simple, only quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, playing on the beats. So really more simple than the other rhythmical idea we have. And in terms of the note content here, we're again doing kind of the same thing the bass is doing, namely surrounding that root note of D here. We go above the root, and this here is a C, so it's below. So again, the note D is really, really the most important one here, and we surround it. So we have kind of that color, that kind of Phrygian sound here, only it's opened up a little bit. You can see how this serves to really build up tension here. We have a lot of notes ringing together and really building up that tension.
So we have a composer in the chat. Hello, Ludo. Feel free to share your stuff here. Someone might want to look at it. But thank you for the compliment.
Definitely. So you can see that we are gradually building up tension the more instruments appear here. And finally, we have this guitar entering, which is basically just doubling what the bass was doing before. You can see it here. Oh, no, I'm not in multi-track anymore. Yeah, here you can see that bass and guitar basically just copying each other. And as for the guitar, I'm using that kind of palm-muted crunch tone, something like that, to really have a lot of low-end information that really complements the bass rather than sticking out a lot. So this is really to make the whole melodic idea that the bass is exposing thicker and really keep up building that energy, that tension for the big drop that happens afterwards. Basically, that's it in terms of the composition for this part. We have our main rhythmical idea and our main theme. Remember these two elements. So boom, 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 ga-da, doom, ga-doom, doom, da is our main rhythm, and our main melody will be this one here. Let's just jump back to Logic and listen to this whole section once again. And I want to draw your attention to what the layers here, the added layers are doing.
And before that, maybe some question. How long did it take for you to write that song?
No idea. I think this one was pretty fast. I think it was the last one I started writing for the new record. But it was not the one that took the most time, so it was finished before some others, although it was the last that began. So hard to tell always, because it's quite time consuming. Sometimes I'm faster, sometimes things fall into place really quickly, sometimes that takes longer, so I really don't remember. But some days of hard work, I would say, at least.
And is there some modification you make when recording it, like in the studio? In that way, would you say the writing process stays until the actual recording of the song?
Yeah, kind of. I think there's always space for modifications in the last minute, because when we're recording drums, maybe we get some last minute ideas or whatever. I don't know if that was particularly the case with this one. Maybe the last modification was the addition of the saxophone, which didn't change the structure of the song, but changed that whole solo part, I think.
So we cannot really consider this is a part of songwriting, just like changing a solo.
Yeah. I don't think it can be considered part of songwriting, but mostly arrangement, I think.
Okay,
I was saying let's listen to this part, and I'm gonna isolate then the samples, but just try to get that rhythmical idea doubled by the bass, and then our main theme will kick in. And it's made thicker by the second guitar now. And here the big part hits. So again, there are a few elements besides the instruments we discussed that really build the atmosphere. Build the atmosphere of that particular track. Let's listen, for example, to this here. These are basically the samples that are doubling the rest. So basically it's harmonically very simple. These are basically just power chords with some ambient synth sounds, and it really builds up the atmosphere, I think. Let's listen to it in the whole. Try to pick it out. I think it adds a lot to the atmosphere here.
Did you use only digital instruments, or is there something you've actually recorded for the samples?
No, that's only digital instruments, I think.
Okay.
It's only like Logic Pro synth stuff.
Yeah, even those kind of voices you heard?
Yeah, I think that's a preset that's called ghost voices, something like that in Logic. It's pretty fun. Yeah, it creates some weird intervals, some stuff like that, basically randomly, but it fits pretty well, I think.
I was wondering if you actually recorded those voices, like in your vocal booth, going.
No,
I'm sure you.
But that would have been fun, yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see you doing that.
And just listen to one very important thing. I'm gonna get used to that. Crap. Let's listen to one important thing that is gonna lead us to the next part here. Where is it?
Very nice. Love that part. My favorite on the record.
Yeah, that's the part. You have that reverse cymbal, and the sub drops right after. That really builds up the tension. It's just a little something, but in the mix, it really gives us something huge. Here you have it. It's kind of buried here, but I think you get the effect that we're going for.
I think this kind of effect are really present like a lot in the record, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, totally. They're not always obvious. Actually, we try to never make them obvious, but these are just little arrangement devices that just make the song more intense when it needs to be, and that kind of stuff. We're going to have more of that later in the song, you'll see. So then we dig into the part that you heard on the radio edit version. So a very intense part, stream of notes. Then the harmony kicks in. And then we head into the verse. So this is basically our main riff now. Let's have a look at what notes are in there on the Guitar Pro. So basically here we have something pretty dense with all the instruments playing basically almost all the triplets. You can see it in the bass, you can see it in the drums. We have the double bass that really builds up the energy. And still we have our snare falling in the four, so and you can see one of these rhythmical accents here is mirrored everywhere in all our instruments here. For example, on the guitar we're doing this, creates some kind of rhythmical surprise and makes everything really heavier. So that's the only element of the song that of the riff, I mean, that doesn't follow that steady triplet parts. We have only these accents here that are hammered on the toms as well to make them even heavier. So in terms of the notes here, it's pretty similar to what we had in the first riff. So remember, we used the half-whole diminished scale. That is kind of what we are doing here as well. I would say it's a mixture between this half-whole diminished scale and different kind of Phrygian modes. Because as you might know, you're not necessarily forced to obey strictly to a scale or whatever. And that's perfectly the case here. We have that basically Phrygian sound based heavily around this note of D, which is surrounded, like in the riff before, from above and below. So we really have that strong Phrygian sound here, with some elements of, like here. We have the minor and major third, which are present in the half-whole diminished scale, but we have also some notes that are more present in the Phrygian mode itself. So for example, here when I do this, we have a perfect fourth here, which is not present in our half-whole diminished scale, as you can see. So it's not really strictly in one scale, but you have that. I would sum it up as a Phrygian kind of riff.
The tuning is a 7-string standard tuning. So B, E, A, D, G, B, E.
Yeah, and you can see that we also like to compose songs that are not based around the open strings. I love the key of D because it enables you to, you can use the pretty low register of the guitar, but you can still go below the root as well, which gives you a lot of flexibility. And that's definitely something I would recommend. Try to not stick to the open string keys, E, A, or D, or B, if you have a 7-string, but try experimenting different keys as well. That might give you different ideas. Again, here we have some kind of a Phrygian riff, and the cool thing about all these kind of Phrygian modes is that they really serve to build up the tension because of this interval here that is present throughout the riff. But you can see different elements from different scales here, so it's kind of hard to put that all into one box. If we have a look at what the guitars are doing, they're basically playing the same thing in the beginning, and then in the middle of the riff, that's something I always like to do, the harmony guitar kicks in. Do you want to play it for us? Maybe we can play the two together, slowly, directly in the harmony part.
Okay.
4, 5, 6. Okay, cool. So you can see here that the guitars are always playing different notes here. They start out basically a third apart, when the first guitar is doing this, the second one is doing. So basically at a distance of a third in the beginning. And you can see here, I'm not in the half-whole diminished scale, I'm really in the Phrygian dominant one. So as I said, yeah, it's kind of hard to put that all into one scale. It's just a mixture of different Phrygian sounding scales.
And thank you, Weller Dealer, for hosting our stream.
Yeah, D's an open string, absolutely. But I think you know what I mean. Most of the time, people are using like the lowest strings of their guitars, the reference. And that's not the case here. And you can see in this riff, there's basically very little open strings, just from time to time. And yeah, basically I was saying the guitar is starting a third apart, which makes it quite dense. And then gradually, especially here in the end, we open things up. Guitar is moving high and higher, while my guitar stays in the low register of the bass. So at some point, I think we are at the fifth distance.
That's it.
And then I think maybe even farther at some notes, but yeah, so here we are a sixth apart. So you can see how you can really play with the distance between the two guitars to create dynamics and open up the sound more and more. And that's something I really love to do. Sometimes that's not in the case in this riff, but sometimes the guitars will cross each other. One will start lower and then end up higher as the other guitar. But yeah, you can really create motion in that way by playing the riff in unison first. You give it maximum clarity. You make people understand the melody of the riff, and then you make it more intricate, more complex by adding a second voice. And the second voice is not keeping steady, but it evolves throughout the riff, if you know what I mean. Okay, maybe let's play this riff together slowly, so you can see it. 4, 5, 6. Cool. So yeah, that's really something I want you to experiment with. The distance between your two guitars really can affect a lot how the two interact and create some motion. Let's head back here and listen again to the riff in context. Maybe I start just in the intro so we get the build up to this riff and then see how it goes into the verse. Let's go on with the verse. So a radical switch of ambience here. Sound is much more open. So yeah, the point of this part here is really to open up the sound. All of a sudden, we have a lot of a lighter texture, a lot less notes being played, something a lot more open, and all that gives us a lot of space for the vocals to kick in. Because you should know, when I compose the music, I don't have the vocal lines in mind yet, but I still know which parts are going to focus vocals in the end, which part are going to focus a solo, whatever. So yeah, this part was definitely meant to leave some space for the vocals. So let's jump right into Guitar Pro again, and let's have a look at the verse. So again, first thing I think we should notice here is on the drums. What the drums are doing here, maybe let's listen to the drums alone.
Someone in...
I think you should be able to recognize this pattern.
I think someone just mentioned it. Something about the cymbals played around the accentuated time.
Yeah, basically let's compare the cymbals here. the intro. You see, it's basically the same pattern. That's interesting. That was our rhythmical idea number 1 here, our main rhythmical idea, and it's reused in a totally different way now in the verse. We used it to create something really tribal on the toms, something really heavy and on the low register, and now it's just played lightly on these right accents here. So you can see how a same rhythmical idea can have a very different effect depending on how you use it. And let's jump back into the Guitar Pro, and you can see it here. Tin, 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 tika, tin, 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 tika. It's still present here, that same rhythmical idea. And you see that in the bass as well. We have that rhythmical idea here. Basically playing here now. So yeah, this really mirrors what we were doing in the intro, but you see the effect is really, really different, and that's what I love about composing. Using the same ideas, but giving them a totally different feeling. And yeah, arrange them in different ways. So in terms of rhythm, you're basically using the same stuff, as we said, but arranged differently. Now let's have a look at what the harmony is doing, because obviously this part is a lot more open. There's a lot more harmonic content here. So my guitar is playing this chord here, which is some kind of an E-flat Lydian chord here. We have the major triad and the sharp 4 here. So the Lydian scale contains these notes here. So 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, and 7. Before we look to the octave. It's a very dreamy sounding scale, which I really love to create that kind of open atmospheres. And the cool thing about the Lydian scale is that basically you have no note which you cannot rest on. If I play, for example, this here, the root, I can totally stay on that note. The 9th, I can totally stay on that note. The 3rd as well. This one as well, sharp 11. You see that every note in here can be a place of rest, a place where you can really stay on. Even this tension here is not really aggressive. Let's compare that, for example, to the major scale. We have this 4th here that heavily wants to resolve down here. That's not the case in the Lydian scale, where each note can really ring out. And that's what makes the Lydian scale so well suited for this kind of more modal stuff, where you can really rest on one chord and create a nice atmosphere. And actually, it's kind of mirrored in what the vocal melody is doing as well. The vocal melody is not playing the chord tones. It's starting, I think, on that sharp 11. So really, we're not playing the chord tones here. We're not playing in the melody, but we're playing the color notes. And still it sounds very relaxed. I'm sorry. We're really playing with the color notes here. Yeah. And that's really one of the characteristics that I love about the Lydian scale. There is no note that doesn't sound like a place of rest. I don't know if you agree. I think you used it as well in your solo. You used a lot of the color notes, and still they sound really relaxed.
I basically played the whole scale during the solo, so yeah.
Yeah, and in the beginning I think you start here on this sharp 11, and then you go down to the 9th, I think, yeah.
Yep.
So it's interesting about that scale.
Yep.
So here, Lydian chord. And what's interesting is that how, remember we were in the key of D before. D, kind of Phrygian kind of sound. And D Phrygian contains the same notes as E flat Lydian. Except now E flat is the resonance in terms of D instead of D.
And that's why it blends so well.
yeah, that's totally why it blends so well. And there's another reason that makes it blend even better, I think. Because the Phrygian scale is usually, if we use it in a tonal context, it's found on the 5th degree of a scale. 5, 6, 7, 1. The minor scale. And if you know a little bit of classical harmony, you know that the 5th degree of the scale heavily wants to resolve to the 1 here. So I often use the Phrygian mode as kind of a dominant pedal point to eventually resolve maybe to something like that. Contains the same notes, but we move from 5 to 1. And that's not what we're doing here. But I think you will get my point. If I'm doing G minor, it contains these notes here, G, B flat, and D. Let's compare that to E flat minor. We have E flat, G, and B flat. So 2 notes in common in between this and this. In between this and this here. And that's what makes it possible also to kind of resolve your Phrygian sound, not here, but also on what I would call a secondary tonic function chord. Here, you can see the effect. I resolve, and in this song, what I do is basically this. Some kind of resolution, not the one you would expect, but still a very nice musical effect. So we're basically resolving to the flat 6th of the key of G minor. All right?
Yeah, that's clear.
I hope I'm not too specific about these kind of stuff. I hope you can still follow all of this.
Hello, Ben Darrell. Yes, it's musical lesson time. Oh, thank you for your submission.
Thank you so
for
much.
5 months. Thank you very much.
So basically we moved from D Phrygian to E flat Lydian, which contains the same notes. Then let's see where that takes us. That takes us...
If everything Vince is saying is not that clear, feel free to say it in the chat. Maybe we should explain something twice, I don't know.
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, feel free. Definitely.
It's very difficult because I don't know what you guys know. Usually when I teach that kind of lessons, I deeply know what my student is aware of. And yeah, it's kind of hard to do that on the internet, talking to a camera. But I hope you still get something out of it. I was saying this E flat Lydian chord finally brings us to a G, which you remember was kind of the tonal center we could have in mind since the beginning. But there's something to be noted about this G chord here. Instead of it being a G minor, that would be our point of rest, we have kind of a G Dorian kind of sound here. You hear it with this interval here, the E natural. So instead of resolving our whole cadence here to a G minor, we resolve it to a G Dorian chord. Why is that? Actually, this chord still feels absolutely like home to me. When we finally land on this G chord, I don't know how you feel, but it feels really like a place of rest, of home. Do you feel it that way as well?
You know, I'm just classically trained, so I only know major and minor. So no, this is something wrong here. What's that?
No, but I mean, yeah, when you are here,
yeah,
this G feels like home.
Of course, I get your point.
And there we bring in a nice little color. And
it's just to basically to add another color.
Yeah,
nothing more.
It's just to add another color, and that Dorian mode is used on that purpose very often in jazz or fusion, where the first degree of your minor tonality will not most of the time be natural minor, but will be maybe a Dorian or melodic minor. And there's a reason for that. Remember with the Lydian scale, we talked about each note being a point of rest.
Yep.
Well, the minor equivalent to that scale to me is the Dorian scale.
Okay.
Because let's listen to it. Obviously, this note brings a lot of color, but it still feels like it's not wanting to go somewhere. Let's compare that to the flat 6 of the Aeolian scale. This really wants to go back here. Whereas this here, from the Dorian scale, can totally stand on its own. While this can't, I think. And that's why most of the time on the first degree of your scale, you can sometimes use the Dorian scale instead of that kind of an Aeolian chord that wouldn't work nearly as good, I think.
Okay, I see.
It's really often used in jazz. Let's play, for example, a 2-5-1 sequence. And see how nice it sounds if I resolve it to this Dorian chord. And how horrible it would sound if I resolve it to an Aeolian chord.
Well, it's not resolved at all, actually.
No, it's not resolved at all. It's not horrible. I think I'm wrong, but it's not resolved.
Yeah.
Let's listen to it again. No.
Yeah.
This would be resolved. But this also. Resolved, but with a lot of color still in it.
Yeah, with a little bit more of a more spicy minor. Would you say that?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that's used a lot in jazz, especially resolving the one to some kind of Dorian kind of sound.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing here. Again, as a whole, this part is just that. E flat Lydian, and then G Dorian. Two really restful chords. And this really suits this part well, because remember, we were aiming to open up the sound, to leave a lot of space for the vocals, to make something really contrasting with the part before. That's what we are going for here. Let's just look at this interesting transition here, where everything, I think you can see it here, starts getting denser again. We had only like quarter notes, something very open with a lot of chords, and suddenly we have a lot of density happening again, a lot more notes. You can see it here, a lot more accents as well. And this will really serve as a transition to the next part. Let's listen to it again. So we open up the sound, leave a lot of space for the vocals. E flat Lydian, G Dorian, again something very open. Suddenly, here it becomes denser again. All building up to this chorus here. So what's happening here? There's obviously something getting more tense here. And if we have a look at what the guitars are doing, and the bass as well, basically it's playing in E now. So basically you have this descending motion and some very dense chords happening here. Basically what this is, it's a E7 kind of color with a lot of extensions here. Sharp 9, flat 9, and here a traditional 7th chord. And the purpose of this, of the dominant chord, is usually to point us to a new tonal center. If we have this here, E7, we expect that this is the 5th degree of a new scale. In that case, it would be A minor. So let's listen to it. We're in G Dorian. And then we would expect it to resolve nicely to an A minor. And you see, using a dominant chord, even though it has nothing to do with our initial key here, remember we're in G minor, G Dorian, E7 is not part of that. But you accept the sound because you accept that this is wanting to lead you to a chord like this, a 5th away. Hope you get my point. This is kind of a 5-1 motion we're expecting here. Okay.
Did Caligula's horse influence you in writing that specific song?
No, I discovered the band after it was composed. But there's definitely maybe some harmonic similarities in the writing style. They are very rich, harmonically rich songs as well. So maybe that's where you get maybe a similarity here.
Yes, Ben, travel safe. See you.
Okay, let's listen to the transition into the chorus again and see how the dominant chord is building up some tension. But I want to ask you if you think this tension is resolved right away when the chorus starts. Is it resolved or not? So to me, the answer is no, it's not resolved when the chorus kicks in at first. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. We don't really hear that A chord.
Yeah, we don't really hear that A chord exactly. Basically, what happens, you will see it in the guitar here on the sheet, is what this part is doing here is that we keep hammering that E. We're not resolving, we're still on the 5 here. But let's see what the bass is doing, E as well. And what's important, what keeps building up that tension is that we stop altogether here, except for the melodic line. And this really creates an element of surprise again. Everything stops, we expect a resolution, but it doesn't come. That really creates some more suspense, musical suspense.
Yeah.
And let's see how we could analyze that here. So basically my guitar is doing that power chord in E, and Hugo's guitar is doing that could be seen as some kind of a A minor 9 arpeggio, but let's try more to see it in comparison to E as the root. To me, the color that comes out of it is this. Which would be kind of an E sus 4 chord here, with just a little decoration. And that totally fits our description that we had before, that we are not resolving anything. We were in E7, and we kind of move to that kind of E sus kind of sound that leaves us waiting for something to happen. And the wait is intensified by the little stop you hear at the beginning of the chorus. Let's listen to it again. Try to hear how the tension is kept. And we'll finally resolve when the other instruments start playing a groove again, basically. Let's see how the stops build up that tension. And then finally we have maybe something more resolved when the drums and everything kick back in. I hope you got my point here. So basically what we are going to look at now is the chord progression of the chorus. What we are doing here is some kind of E suspended chord, which you would expect maybe to resolve to a 1, but we have some kind of deceptive resolution. We don't resolve to a 1, but we go somewhere else. This here, the D, would be the 4th degree of the scale. Then we have some kind of an E. Again, E7, which is the 5. And then this could be seen as some kind of inversion of E7. G sharp diminished is kind of an inversion of G7, of E7, serving the same purpose. So for now we have 5, 4, 5, an inversion of 5. And finally here, on the next bar, we have our 1 of the scale kind of being played. It's hard to see, but yeah. Ooh, sorry. And finally here, we have a strong point of resolution to end our musical phrase here. This is finally where we have the point of rest. Let's listen to it in the song. the tension. There is your resolution. Let's see if it happens the second time. Not quite. It doesn't happen quite the same way. But let's jump back to that resolution here. The moment when it happens is very important.
Yeah, can you just tell us a bit more about that 5 inversion?
Yeah.
I suppose it's that one, the G sharp diminished.
Yeah, basically G sharp diminished can be seen as some kind of inversion of a E7 flat 9, because an E7 flat 9 is basically a diminished G sharp diminished, but G sharp diminished doesn't contain the root. But essentially, apart from that, they have the same notes. Yeah. So you could say they have the same function. Listen to it. I'm playing 5-1. Tension. Resolution. And now I'm playing 7-1. So diminished and 1. You have that same effect. Tension. Resolution.
Yeah, so the
tension. Resolution.
The G sharp is basically an E7 but without the E.
Exactly. And so I consider them always equivalent. They don't have the same sound but the same effect, basically. Yeah. Tension, resolution. Tension, resolution. Very interesting to know. And you can play with that kind of inversions. Basically, if you have G sharp diminished, you have also, since it's a symmetrical chord, you have also B diminished, D diminished, F diminished. And each one of these can serve as a 5, so to say, to get us back here. Very interesting thing about diminished chords used as dominant chords. Okay, I was saying here, the point where we finally resolve is important because it's at the end of our musical phrase. So we have our phrase ends here, our statement is made, and then we start the statement all over again. Except the second time, we don't resolve like we would expect. We would do something like this. So what's happening here? Let me show that to you on the sheet. It's basically here. We have these chords here, which are mirrored in the bass. The bass is doing you can see it here. While the chords being played are this. Yeah, a weird Spanish move, kinda, maybe. Basically what this is a 2-5-1 chord progression. 2, 5, 1, which means second degree of a scale, fifth degree of the scale, and 1 of the scale. This is basically the essential building block of jazz harmony. 2-5-1. Subdominant chord, a dominant chord, and a tonic chord, resolving that whole thing. Only the funny thing about that is that we were in the key of A, right? And suddenly, because of that cadence here, we are not anymore. And remember, earlier on, in the transition to that chorus, we used the E7, although beforehand we were in G Dorian here. We used E7 to bring us to the key of A. We used the dominant chord of the tonality we're targeting to get there. And basically, that's what we are doing here as well. We are using this 2-5 progression to lead us somewhere else. And somewhere else is here, to D. So you see, it's a very effective way of changing key, of modulating. Throw in a 5 of the key you want to target, or in that case, you can throw in also a 2-5. 2, 5, 1, and I'm in a new key. And I could basically switch to any key that way. For example, I could do something like that, whatever. Or like that. You see, I can change the keys by throwing it that little cadence here, 2, 5, 1. And the reason it works particularly well here is that D minor and A minor are not so far apart. I think they have only one note of difference, which makes it very easy to switch from one to the next. I hope you understood. So again, we expect a resolution at the end of this chorus, but this resolution is not the one we expected. We get something else. Let's listen to it again. Here we resolve. And there we resolve somewhere else. And why we did that, I think we have to look at what comes next. What comes next is this part here. And this part is, again, in the key of D. We're only playing Ds, so there is no real ambiguity about what key center we're in, I think.
Yeah, indeed.
And yeah, you see, my point was I needed a way of going back to D, because D was where we started the song. And there's this kind of motion here, going from a D phrygian kind of sound, going then to this G minor, E flat Lydian kind of sound. And then we have a chorus in A minor, basically. And I needed a way to get back to where we started. And in that case, I used the 2, 5, 1 in the key of D. And you see then, here, I'm basically in D minor. But after, I can use that D tonal center to get back to where I started, to that D phrygian kind of sound, which is exactly what we're going to do. But yeah, that's a way to get back to D. Throw in a 2-5-1 chord progression. I hope that's okay for you guys. Anyway, if you have some questions, you're always free to ask. If something was not clear or whatever, feel free. So let's listen to the chorus and to the part right after that. Or maybe we can just have a little look at the stems of the chorus as well before that. Because there's something interesting there as well. Let's listen to it. So we have the rhythmical basis here. Let's see how this chorus is built in terms of arrangement. Let's add in the guitars. And then let's add in the layers here. So you see these layers really add a lot. Let's listen to them. So we have some strings and some choirs that really make the whole thing a lot thicker, a lot more dense. Let's try to pick them out when we listen to the whole stuff. If I mute them, sounds really bland. I add them back in. You can really feel the difference. Without, put them back in. It opens up the sound. And that's exactly what you want from a chorus, I think.
This is really thicker.
This is a lot thicker. And basically, what these the
choruses are in backward. What do you mean? Like the samples? It goes like in a kind of swelling sound.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's the samples that are that way, but I think it kind of fitted that part. Just to end it up with what the samples are doing. Basically, they're just playing the chords that the guitar is playing. But yeah, with that kind of wider spectrum even.
Hello, Nevermore. Thank you for saying hi. You can watch back this stream later.
Where you have the same kind of chords happening here. And let's finish that analysis of the stems with what's going on with the vocals. Very interesting. Let's listen first maybe to the lead vocals. I have to find my way in that. Yeah, maybe this. And let's add in all the layers here. The farmer cannot fail with an unborn. So basically here there are about 40 voices superimposed. Let's listen to the whole backing vocals. The farmer cannot fail with an unborn. So with a lot of head voices as well, it basically goes all the way up and down from a register to make the sound as thick as possible. And yeah, every vocal line is quad tracked here. And altogether, I think it really blends very well. So you can still clearly hear the lead vocal lines. But it's really made thicker by all these backing vocal lines. Let's listen to it in context. Give me a second. Yeah. If I mute the backing vocals, see how bland it sounds. I think these vocal layers really added a lot to that chorusy effect you want to get here. Combined with the synth stuff, with the lead guitar and everything, all together builds that really massive chorus, I think.
Yeah, since it's only your voice that is added in several layers, it's almost like a vocoder. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think that, yeah, maybe.
We can. It sounds like it's your voice through a keyboard playing chords, actually.
Yeah, because every voice obviously is then edited to make everything sound really together. So you can hear there's not a lot of the transients from the voice left in the backing vocals.
Yeah,
I try to leave that out, really, just to make it thicken the lead vocal line, which is the main carrier of the transient information of the voice, I think. You really want to have that effect, like it's a choir singing, that you are not able to pick out the individual voices. I think that it really blends together. And yeah, I think that every line is quad tracked enhances that effect, that you don't pick out the individual lines and that it sounds like a whole rather than some parts put together.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And let's just have a little look at the effects that are added in the chorus. I'm talking about this, I think, or it's the fade in, I don't know. Where is it? Yeah, this kind of stuff. And where it is, it's right here. Try to pick it out. It really enhances that tension we build up here with the stop. To really make the rebound on the snare bigger.
There is another one right before the stop, which it's another kind of fade in, but still another one.
Yeah. So basically there are two, exactly.
Yeah.
There's one leading us into the chorus because you expect something is going to happen. You build up the tension here. But as we explained, the tension doesn't happen quite when you, doesn't resolve quite when you expect it to resolve. And then to keep building up that, we use that reverse snare kind of sound. Let's listen to it again. The first swell leads us into the chorus. And the second one gets the chorus rolling finally.
Yep.
I hope you get it. Okay, enough with that chorus. Something very rhythmical here. The intensity has come down quite a little bit. It's a lot more minimalistic. Let's listen to it without the vocals. Very staccato notes. Then we have our main theme again, remember? That's very interesting to note. We are reusing the theme from the beginning. Here. So that's our main motif being used in different context again. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, about that drum pattern. Maybe let's just analyzing it and then we'll talk a bit about it.
Yeah, so this is here.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, the guitars are only playing Ds, basically, power chords here. And as I said last week, some people might confuse this with odd meters because the rhythm is quite confusing, but it's still 6/4. You can see there's no time signature change here whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's only the accents being moved around. And as we discussed it last week in the guitar lesson video, you really have to feel this rhythm with the underlying pulse, actually. But the interesting thing is that nothing in the drums is giving us that pulse. Maybe I can make that a little bit clearer. Yeah, the presentation is always horrible. I don't know who said that in the chat, but I totally agree. I'm clicking on the wrong button. That doesn't help. I'm sorry. I need glasses. Yeah. That's much better. So here you see in the drums, there's basically no element indicating the pulse, the quarter note pulse. There are no accents on there. And that makes it quite confusing, I think, when you first listen to that part. But it becomes a lot clearer if you have the underlying pulse in mind. So try to listen to the part by counting the beat. Ta, 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 ta. I'm going to put the stamps again. Ta, 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 ta. That's really something that I love to do, create that kind of rhythmical illusions that something different is happening. But in the end, it's just only 6/4, but only playing around with the subdivisions.
And yeah, you're right, Ludo. It's as Meshuggah feel. That's the very reason, because they're like a steady beat. Nothing fancy about it, but there is a second rhythm above it. And yeah, which creates some illusions and something not really stable, but in the end, it's only a stable beat. Meshuggah use it a lot.
Meshuggah use it mostly differently, though. I think Meshuggah
polyrhythms
very often will highlight the beat, most often on the cymbals. When you take, I don't know, bleed, for example, you have that crazy stuff going on, but still over that you have the cymbals doing a steady quarter note pulse. And I think in 95% of Meshuggah stuff, you have the pulse being highlighted, which makes it, I think, easier for the listener to follow what's going on. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it depends on the songs.
Yeah.
Because the snare, just even if they're a beat, the snare isn't really follow the same cycle. So the snare drum
sometimes not.
Add some funny things.
Cath 33.
And yeah, by the way, about that drum pattern, we set up a contest. If you want to win one copy of our album, you just have to play that very pattern on whatever you want, send it to us, tag us on your post with the hashtag, I think it's Clockwork Drum Challenge. And then the one who gets it the better or the more creative wins a CD. Let me just paste a link to the announcement.
Yeah. And while we do that, I can comment on the drum part a little. So you see, what guitars and bass are doing is basically just playing the accents, and the drum is doing something interesting. It's playing all the subdivisions in between, which makes it maybe easier to feel, but still quite tricky because the accents are really falling on weird places. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Like that. And this is worst when I think on the second triplet. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So some stuff like that is really confusing, but you can see that the drum is really highlighting all the subdivisions in it. And that's really interesting. One thing that is added on this part are some synth stuff. Synth. Let's listen to them. So this is going on at the same time. Let's listen to it. This is basically the only carrier of melodic information so far. Now the theme enters again, so we have another melodic information going on, but in the beginning it's only just rhythmical stuff, except for that synth going on in the background. And that synth is basically doing some diminished stuff as well. Don't remember exactly. Some ascending the diminished scale. And it adds a lot of texture again to that part. So this is for the first half of the riff. In the second half of the riff, things change a little bit. First thing, the most important one, I think, is the addition of that main theme here we discussed. Which again brings us melodic information, reminds us of the beginning, and yeah, pretty important part here being added. It really keeps adding layers to that part. And the other thing that changes is in the drums. Here now we are back with some kind of the beat, I think. With the snare being again played where you expect it on the 4. And now the accents have been switched to the right. So the role in the drum elements have changed a little bit. Let's listen to it on the stuff. So in the beginning, in the first 4 bars, there's basically no pulse, there's no backbeat on the snare, and in the second part there is cymbals again highlighting the accents, and there is again a backbeat on the snare. Let's listen to it. It's really minimalistic. And the pulse will come back. Which slowly takes us back to something more familiar in terms of the rhythm. In the beginning, we have this confusing stream of notes. And then we head back to something more familiar, which is going to enable us to bridge perfectly over to the next part. The backbeat is back. And a little drum roll, and we are back on our tracks. And that's really interesting about this part. It really starts out confusing, and then I think our brain kind of gets used to it, and there are new elements grounding us again in the pulse, like the entering of this guitar, playing the quarter notes, and the drums playing the backbeat. Everything leads us slowly back into something less confusing rhythmically. And let's just have a look at the vocals. Let's add the vocals in here, and listen how the vocals are playing the role of a drum as well here. They're playing very rhythmical, playing on every single accent. And again, that's something that's really Meshuggah in the approach, having the vocals just being another rhythmical instrument. And that's exactly the case here. This is pretty tricky to do. You have to really focus on getting the rhythm as tight as possible on the vocals to keep the syllables short. Let's listen to it. in isolation. See, really short syllables. And it only works when you are really tight, I think, and every consonants of the voice fall together. Obviously, you can edit if it's not perfect in the studio, but still, that is quite a tough part to play live.
Fortunately, the vocals are right on the guitar accent. So we just hit the chords and vocals at the same time. And so on. There's a lot of noise in my guitar, sorry about that. I think it's because of all the computers around the guitar. It has some electrical interferences.
Yeah. It's worth having a camper if you have even more noise than with a tube amp. Or
yeah, but when I hold it like this, it's okay. Noise, no noise. I just have to not to move too much.
Oh, again, let's listen to this part now and head over to the next part. It's going to be verse 2. So verse 2 is again something very open harmonically. It's a little bit denser than verse 1. And we're back on our chorus. So what's going on here in verse 2? First thing I think we should notice is that there is kind of a symmetry in the harmonic journey we were having. We started off, remember in the intro 1 here, we started off in D Phrygian. Then we had this kind of modal E-flat Lydian, G Dorian, going over to A minor, I'm sorry. And then back to something D Phrygian. Back to something modal, I'm going to come to that later. And back to A minor. So it's really just a mirror journey of what we had since the beginning of the song so far. So basically our three tonal centers of D Phrygian, G minor, and then A minor, just repeat a second time. Let's see at what differs now. The thing we should notice how we transition from that rhythmical part into the verse. We have a little ascending guitar line that really brings us back to something more melodic, something more ethereal, I think. Listen to it. This really serves as a perfect transition with a little drum, a roll, and that really singing guitar line. And then we are on verse 2. So what's happening here? Let's jump to the Guitar Pro. Verse 2, harmonically, I think you might have recognized it, is using the exact same tools as verse 1. If I would sum it down to something, it would be the same kind of a E-flat Lydian and then G Dorian kind of sound. And I even have the E7 in the end. But what's being played on the guitars is completely different. Now we have something a lot denser, but still not heavy, I think. We have something like this. So all the triplets are being played again, but it's not something heavy as we had in the beginning. It's not something as light as we had in verse 1, but it's really evolving. It's really making the part evolve into something different. But again, at the core of that, there's the same harmonic information that in verse 1. And let's see at what stays the same. Basically, the bass line is exactly the same as in verse 1. Although I think on the record it's now played with a pick instead of the fingers. But it's basically the same bass line. And we have a look at the drums. Actually, let's listen to them. The drums are playing the same pattern again. You will recognize it. harmonica. Again, it's the pattern from the intro. So very interesting. We are using again our same idea that we had in verse 1 as well. We have just now added some double bass. Verse 2. So it's the same part, but denser because of the use of double bass now. And again, we have the same bass line as in verse 1. But the guitars are doing that more kind of stream of notes. But I think I can show you something in the guitars. It's that some background guitars are still doing these arpeggios. Let's listen to them. So the arpeggios from the first part are still there, and that gives us a lot of harmonic content as well. But it is doubled now with the main guitars. And I think, one thing I should have shown you in the first verse as well is the use of acoustic guitars here. Just to make the sound a little bit more open as well. So that's pretty cool. And altogether, the guitars sound like this. So you can see the acoustic guitars are kind of buried in the mix, but still add a little something. You see, altogether creates that ambience. And yeah, as you say, it's some kind of counterpoint in between these different lines, between the arpeggios and what the other guitar is doing. The calm before the storm, exactly. Although it's not as calm as verse 1, there's a lot more happening here.
I think the acoustic guitar brings more of a texture, more than harmony. We hear those strings plucked more than the actual notes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It has more of a texture, a calm texture, like a summer vibe,
Yeah.
folk guitar and everything.
I think the main harmonic information here, at least in terms of the guitars, is carried by these ones here.
Yep.
These ones.
Yeah, I agree.
While this one, adds a texture. I totally agree. Something warm about these strumming sounds that blend into the whole. So basically, you have the rhythmical information given by the rhythm guitar, the harmonic information given by these arpeggios, and some kind of texture given by the acoustic guitar.
Yeah, just the strumming, I think,
Yeah, and that's also doubled by some strings. Oh, how beautiful, how lovely. Strings and acoustic guitars, how nice. Again, these strings add a lot to the color of that part. Let's listen to that. If I remove the strings, and if I add them in, they're not very loud in the mix, but still. And I was saying that arpeggio guitars and that strings are bringing a lot of harmonic information, but it's the case with the vocals as well. Let's maybe listen to them on their own. We foreshadowed the for behind the mirror's back. Again, the vocals are playing more on the color notes, not on the chord tones as well, so they are adding a lot of color. Let's listen to vocals and guitar. All that together is already pretty rich, and then you can add a rhythmical content to all of that, and you get something very, very open with the ride and everything. So as a whole, this is kind of the same vibe that we had in verse 1, something very open. It's basically the same tools being used. The only thing that changes is it's denser because of the double bass and because of that here. Steady triplet stream of notes. And just to finish with this part, what's happening on the guitars basically is that these accents from the guitar fall with the ride cymbal, with the main rhythmical idea that we had before. listen to the interaction between drums and guitars here. Actually, maybe just this one, and see how they are intertwined and playing on the same rhythm. Obviously, they are not stupidly mirroring each other, but you can see that they are based on the same rhythmical idea. And you can see how different the effect is. Basically, it's played on the same rhythm, but compare that to this. Basically, we have the same rhythm, but totally different harmony, totally different orchestration in the drums. And yeah, you can really make a rhythm tell a totally different story with varying the harmony on top of it.
Someone asked who produced this album.
Yeah, Flavien Morel, the producer of all our records so far. And he has really outdone himself on this one, I think.
We just see that verse with all that guitar part. Which share have Flavien and you? Who decided to add all those parts, and how?
Actually, I think you could say that I was a big part of the producer of the record as well, because I sent over all the tracks already, all the synth stuff, all the additional guitars and everything.
Yes, so you've decided to add all those strings, acoustic guitars. You had a precise thing in mind about all these sound texture.
Yeah. But then I needed his magic to operate to make everything work together in the context of the mix. But I think the more records we release, the more confident I am about what I want as a sound texture overall. I think for the first record, Engram of Decline, Flavien added a lot of synth stuff because he's a keyboard player as well, so he knows a lot about that. But now I provided more and more of these synth sounds to him already. And I think, that made the whole process a lot quicker also for him, because he didn't have to focus about that, but really could focus about making the stuff that I sent him sound the best way possible.
Okay, thank you.
So I think if you wanted to call it, I think me and Flavien basically produced the record together and he mixed it. I think that would be the right credit. Because producing a record is usually that part of the process, adding all the layers, all the arrangements, and all that stuff.
Yeah, basically the producer he gives all those techniques how to sound right. I think he brings all these ideas on what the band actually plays. I don't know if you see what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
The musicians compose the songs, lyrics, the harmony chords and everything. And I think the producer his job is making things sounds beautiful. Not only mixing stuff, but just how to record it actually.
How to record it, and what to add, what to record, and what to add when also.
That's it.
And as I said, the more records we record, the more confident I go about that, because the more experience I gather, the more I know beforehand which part is going to need strings and everything. And I've started recording some pre-projections for the next record, and there's already, although the pre-projections are not yet finished, there's already a ton of synth stuff being added and everything. Because now I barely can't hear the songs without all the layers. Basically, it just sounds bad to me without all of these layers. So I have to add them really early in the process, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And do you think you might produce other musicians' album in the future?
That would be obviously very cool. But the thing is, I'm not really confident. There's kind of this imposters, how do you call it? Imposters
syndrome,
syndrome,
yeah. Okay.
That makes me not really confident about maybe letting people pay for something I basically learned just by noodling around and turning some buttons on the computer. So maybe, but that will be a huge step for me to cross, I think. And I still want to get better at my own stuff first.
Okay. Fair enough, I think. Just a question of time then.
Yeah, time and confidence. That's a big problem for me.
Confidence is building with time, I think.
Yeah, but I'm getting more confident mixing our playthroughs and also the live shows or whatever. So maybe, but I'm not sure. Okay, let's head back to the song. So verse 2, variation of verse 1. You can hear also the same vocal melody, basically. And then we are back on the chorus. Nothing new here. Except now our second chorus leads to something else. Again, what happens here is pretty simple. We only have a stop, so everyone stops, and there's just this main melodic motif that ties all the song together. That happens here. And here it serves really as a transition. When this stops, it suddenly creates a lot of expectation, a lot of tension. You know there's something coming, and that's what was funny with the reaction video I did with Kardashev. He had never heard the song before, but when he heard that part, he already knew, something's coming up. And so, I think the purpose of that part was fulfilled, if that worked. So there's really just this guitar, a lot of tension suddenly, and something is about to happen. I think you can feel it.
Yeah, it's his ominous part.
Let's listen to it again. Where are we? Here. Something's coming. And indeed, Again, this is not the mastered stuff, so it doesn't sound nearly as thick as the end product, but I think you still can get the heaviness out of the part that comes. So what's happening here? Let's listen to that bridge part, that whole section. And let's see if you can pick out the different elements that you have heard before. There's this main theme. You recognize the rhythm as well. The rhythm from the intro. And see how this part is building up more and more. More and more layers being added here. As well. And there again, we suddenly stop and leave all this energy behind.
You've trained your throat singing on that part.
Amazing.
It's very nice, yeah. Maybe we'll talk about it just a bit later.
So in terms of the notes here, there's really nothing complicated. We can get that out of the way fairly easily. I think you recognized the elements I was talking about. I think I have to move forward a lot. Throughout this whole part, there is this main theme. Really the main motif from the whole song that is being repeated all throughout this part. And it is paired with the rhythmical idea from the intro. It's the same one done in. And also in. It's all the same rhythmical idea. But again, it has a very different effect here. We are playing something fairly brutal, palm-muted power chords. It's really dissonant and aggressive interval here. And then we move that stuff around. We keep that treble note, as you can see here, for example, but move around the other notes. that kind of sounds here. And then you have that extremely aggressive dissonance here, which is played also with the whammy effect on the record. Maybe we can listen at the stems later on, which creates something aggressive. And again, something I should point out about this riff is that this here, let me just put the multi-track, this treble note here, remember, is played on the bass as well, and especially important is played on the, oh, not here actually, later on, I'm sorry, here, it's played on the snare. Where is it? Here, yeah. So you can see here the accented snare is here. I don't know if you can see it properly. I hate this stuff. Am I clicking on the right thing? Yeah. So again, this is made to really accent the snare hit, the backbeat here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have that kind of effect that really works well. Yeah, exactly. But apart from that, it's using the same tools, that kind of Phrygian half-whole diminished sound. Using these kinds of notes, they're basically the same harmonic texture that we had in the beginning. And what's important also are these little stops here that really keep building up the tension. Let's listen to them in the context and see how the only elements ringing out there are the crunch guitar playing the motif. Where is it? I think it should be somewhere here. Yeah, I'm a complete idiot. Yeah, there I go. See how in these little stops there's only the crunch guitar ringing. So in the beginning, in the drums, we have this kind of halftime feel, which is really heavy, I think. Let's listen to it. There's only one snare every 2 measures. Which creates some kind of very weird feeling also. And then let's listen to how it switches back to the wiggle backbeat. Something next. So suddenly you have something a lot groovier again. So essentially, the main difference between these two parts is what the drum is doing. In the beginning, it's doing, maybe I can show it like this. Yeah, that's much better. It's doing basically just the ghost note stuff, a little bit like what we had in the rhythmical part, with the cymbals only being hit very, very rarely here. But then, when the bridge 2 kicks in, we have, again, a steady quarter note pulse and a steady backbeat here. And what's really interesting and what makes this part extremely tribal and brutal is how the toms are hitting every single accent of the guitars. Basically every single accent that is not played on the snare or on the cymbals, like here. Let's listen to it. Let's listen to the drums, how they change. Ghost note stuff. Again, you have the toms already, but very few cymbals and loud snares. Compare that to the part that is up next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Quarter notes are back. And to enhance all that rhythmical element, let's listen at what the drums is doing here. The drum is doing all the ghost notes. You can see it here, doing all the ghost notes. And then suddenly, when we land here, we'll see it right where of him, there is no ghost notes anymore. Something a lot more open and heavy. But what kicks in at that very moment are these little stuffs. And basically you can see how these percussions here, the darbuka, is kind of playing the role that was played by the snare, the ghost notes snare here. So ghost note snare here, and in that part, it's replaced by the percussions, which keep it very groovy and tribal. Let's listen to it without it. And I'm adding them in. And you see how they keep getting louder and louder, more intense. Let's listen to that in context. And I'm removing the percussions, you will see what's missing. Adding them back in. At least beginning they're very subtle. Now they get very much louder. And when they're not there, you're clearly missing something. This is clearly something that adds a lot to this part.
I think the main effect of these darbuka, it basically fills all the triplets of all the beats and then keeps the whole thing flowing on all the part.
Basically, I think I double tracked that darbuka left and right. Oh crap!
Left and right.
Left and right. Yeah. If you listen to it, I think it's on the right speaker. There is a part doing tuck 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 tuck. So basically highlighting the pulse, and while the darbuka on the left is more highlighting the accents. Tuck tuck. Where are we? Tuck 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 tuck. And together they create this texture. This texture. The two intertwine, and with the drums really create that, as you said, Hugo, the flow of notes.
This whole flow of triplets, never ending.
It's really tribal.
Yeah, and kind of hypnotic.
Yeah, that was totally the point.
Which makes you enter a sort of trance, I think.
Definitely, I think that's the whole point of this part. It really makes you travel somewhere else, and there's really this contrast between this middle part and the rest of the song. But still, it uses the same elements. You see the same rhythmical and melodic elements.
Yeah.
But all this contrast, to make it fit well in the song, was really brought by the little pause here, I think. Can I go back a little bit? If you would head straight into the bridge part without this transition, it wouldn't work really that well, I think. But now you build up the expectation for something to happen. And this transition makes it able to switch into that part. And I think that's also why I used the transition again at the end of the bridge, because we need to cut away from that atmosphere to get back to something else. Yeah. You know what I mean? We'll jump to that later.
Yeah, I see. This is a bit radical, but it works. It works like a charm. Just a big stop.
Yeah, it's radical, and obviously that doesn't work or can be quite clumsy on some occasions, but I think in this context it works well, especially because we use a theme that has already been used throughout the song to tie everything together. Yeah. I'm talking about this arpeggio here. We heard it before, so yeah, that ties everything together. And so I think there was a question about the lead.
Yeah. Is there an ebow on the lead?
Yeah, actually, let's listen to just let's listen. I'm gonna manage this just to the rhythm section. Yeah, no, just this, and let's add in all the layers. see how dry it sounds here. And I add in the darbuka we had already. We're getting there. Is there something in here? No, I don't think so. But then let's add the other guitars. So that's our main theme. As you can hear, it's also doubled an octave up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can play it.
I used to play it live.
Just to make the whole thing a lot more open, a lot thicker again. And yeah, you mentioned it. This is definitely an EBO. I think I have it here somewhere. Let's forget about it. Yeah, it's an EBO. With a lot of reverb, a lot of an 8-wall sound. And let's compare this. Without. Sounds like crap. With all of that. Yeah, I love the EBO as well. And that's what really contributes to the atmosphere, that part, the darbuka, the main theme being doubled an octave up, and that EBO. Playing just simple notes. I think again it's... Oh no, it's just one guitar for this one. And there's just one more element in this song, which are obviously the vocals. So let's listen to that. We should find a way to always keep that activated. But yeah, it will work for today. What's going on here? In the beginning, it's just basically growls mixed, doubled low and high. Let's listen just to the lead vocals. So this is some kind of middle-pitched growl, doubled with some kind of low-pitched growl. And altogether it creates that really mean type of sound, doubled low and high. And then very interesting. We have this kind of, I would call the Gojira type of vocals. Where you have definitely a lot of distortion, but also a little bit of pitch. You can clearly hear the notes, I think. But with a lot of grit still in the voice. And let me add now all the backing vocals in here. And that is epic. They add a lot of harmonic information. Let's listen to them on their own. So basically these are clean vocals. And you can see how they blend so well with that screamed voice and create something really epic. Let's listen to that in context. You can see all the harmony brought by the backing vocals. Let's see if I remove them. How much is missing here? Let's add them in. And yeah,
it gives a smooth harmony things on something that was pretty much that well the whole riff don't have any precise harmony. I think it's just a power chord with some decent stuff. Of course, they're our main theme. Yep. But beside that, we can hear any chord. But I think those vocals just add a simply minor thing.
Exactly.
Over the whole riff, and yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, basically the harmony is not present in a single element here. Basically, the guitars on their own, you've seen how dry that sounds if I put just the rhythm section.
And then we have just a minor triad.
Yeah. Let's see how dry it sounds, just the rhythm section once again. And just listen maybe to the rhythm section and the backing vocals. Very dry. lot of harmony suddenly.
Yeah, it has a whole new meaning.
Obviously, this meaning you talk about is also added by all the other layers we discussed, but yeah, the backing vocals are definitely playing a huge role in that.
Yeah, well, other elements, I don't think I heard like a minor third in another track.
Yeah, I don't think so as well.
Yeah.
It's just that for vocals, I think the most the most effective vocal harmonies are basically triads. It kind of can work with more complicated chords, obviously, but on a part like that, if you play only like a power chord, I'm sorry, we're in D, there's something lacking. But the moment you add a third voice in between, it really gives a lot of thickness.
Yeah.
And you can't really have intervals like on the guitar, like half steps or whatever, which would just sound terrible, I think, on held vocal notes like that. So
depends on the context, but
obviously, obviously depends on the context. You can do everything you want.
Nevermore is asking if you can isolate the backing vocals.
Yeah, sure.
Bye, Cathy. Thank you to be here tonight. Thank you for being here.
Bye. Thanks for coming. I guess this was a bit hard for you as a non-metal musician.
Yeah. We are between nerds here, so yeah, I can imagine.
There you go.
And someone that just said that he heard those kind of screaming, the Gojira thing, first in clone music, in early clone releases.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we played with them a couple of times, and yeah, the singer is just mind-blowing. Lovely voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I didn't know he did that kind of harsh vocals as well. I don't know their early works.
He had some brutal growls, actually.
Oh, I'm not surprised because he's such a good singer. So I guess it's not difficult for such a skilled singer to do screaming vocals as well.
Yep.
But basically that's it for the bridge. You see that the parts on their own sound not that great, but it's really the sum of all these parts that make it something very special. I think the addition of the percussions, the ebow, the main theme that sticks everything together, the heaviness of the rhythm section, and obviously the vocal melody, the intensity of the lead vocals, and the richness of these backing vocals. Let's go on. Again, there's our little transition. And there, big element of surprise. Saxophone kicks in.
Yeah.
I think more than one person was that didn't know the band, didn't know what to expect, was really surprised by this part.
Yeah, it's like, and suddenly, sax.
So basically, this whole end of the song we're going to be discussing now is kind of a recapitulation of everything that has happened before. If I sum it up just without the leads, maybe, what you are going to hear in these parts, is basically our opening riff from the intro. Then here, the guitar solo plays over the verse, basically. And then we have our final chorus here. So basically this whole new section here is just a recapitulation of what we've heard before, but with new elements. And the most surprising new element here, obviously, is the saxophone.
And yes, it will be playing live.
And we aim for something intense here. So
it was first playing to have a guitar solo on the brutal part and then a sax solo on the smooth part, like more jazz, more smooth. But I don't know when we decided to switch it, and I don't know why actually. But I don't remember what was the reason. But I think the result is really, really cool.
Actually, in the beginning, these two sections were supposed to both have guitar solos because the song was written out before I even started learning that instrument.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, that's something I was going to tell right now. It is that for this record, there are a few sax solos on the record, but none of which were planned beforehand. Basically, these sections which feature saxophone were supposed to have like a lead, a theme, a melody, or solo, whatever. And then we decided later on to add the saxophone. And yeah, that's correct. For this particular song, our initial idea was to switch the roles, have the guitar first and the sax later. And we tried out the two things. And there was a thing that I really enjoyed about having the saxophone here is that it can really bring a lot of intensity. Obviously, it would have totally fit in the guitar part as well, in the second solo. But I really love the intensity it brings here. And it was quite challenging for me. I sent, I think, a lot of versions to you guys before we found something that was satisfying, because I was quite new to the instrument when I recorded the solo. And it was hard.
We were like, no, it has to be more brutal, more violent.
Yeah, and then I totally lost it. I sent over a version that was totally extreme. I don't know if you remembered it. And everybody was like, no, this is too much.
I don't remember that one, actually.
It was something with like a lot of thrills.
All right.
Something really crazy. I sent it to you and separately, and every one of you gave me the same reaction. No, this is too much. And I went for something in between.
I have to find it again. Yeah.
But let's listen to it and let's listen to how intense a non-distorted metal instrument can sound like. We blow really hard.
There's some interesting question here. Was that sax solo hard to mix?
I don't think it was particularly hard to mix for Flavien. He didn't say anything, but I think it's not harder to mix than a guitar solo in the end, because you have a lot of space on that part. It's just basically drums, bass, and guitar. And although the part is pretty intense, you still have a lot of space, especially in the treble register. So I think the sax or guitar can blend in quite well, quite easily. Yeah. And then it's basically just a matter of recording. I think the saxophone was recorded in my booth with this microphone here, the SM7B, which just captures a lot of the dynamics of the saxophone and has a great tone overall. And my booth is sounding extremely dry, so I think it makes it very easy to mix as well.
All right. And Ben has intended upon these two sections. Well, that's funny for someone playing in a band called South of Sax. That was a private joke.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ludo is asking, how do you manage your breathing for in a live context between screaming and playing sax?
Well, yeah, first of all, to answer, I think it was Jamil. Yeah, we're planning to play all this sax stuff live.
Yeah, of course.
And that will sometimes imply just little arrangements to give me a little bit of time to switch in between the instruments, which is quite fun. And I think none of these arrangements really feel forced. I don't know if you agree, but it sounds really natural with the little arrangements we had to make. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having to switch all these instruments. It's going to be even more stressful, focusing on 3 instruments at the same time. And in terms of breathing, live between screaming and saxing, basically in terms of breath, singing and saxophone are using the same technique. You have to support with your lower abdominal muscles and everything. It's basically all the same stuff, so I can apply my knowledge from singing to the saxophone. And I've also become better at singing since I'm playing the saxophone, so it's really a win-win kind of situation. And as for live, it's really a matter of having the stamina. That's maybe the hardest thing, especially when you play long shows, because especially these new songs are extremely intense in terms of singing. But actually the saxophone parts are not that hard. because they are quite short, so I'm not blowing my my mind off for a few minutes in a row. This section is merely like 20 seconds long. The hardest thing about switching these instruments, I think, is really getting into the mindset of the new instrument very fast, especially on the saxophone, since I'm still quite new to it. And since these sections are really short, if you mess up the beginning, you mess up maybe like 20-30% of the whole section. So you really have to be into it very easily. So you have to try to use the moment when you switch the instrument, just to breathe a little bit, to get ready, to get in the right mindset. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that would help change lungs. Just in terms of the notes being played, maybe on the sax solo. It's basically playing with the Phrygian dominant scale, kind of. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but you can really hear that Phrygian sound. And one thing that happens very often is that I use augmented arpeggios. For example, here, augmented arpeggio. I really love the sound of the augmented arpeggio. I use it all the time in my solos, in my chords and everything. So the phrase goes like this, starting on a tension, and then going down the augmented arpeggio. And there's another instance of that in the solo, I think. I don't remember where. No, maybe not. But also what's really important to note about this solo is that I often play with the tensions, the notes. I really highlight the flat 9 of the key to really give it a lot of dissonance. And also some chromatic passages like here. Here's another augmented arpeggio, I knew it. And a lot of these trills that are much more convenient to play on the saxophone than on the guitar, for example. So there are really a lot of elements in that solo that are purely saxophone based. Let's listen at the beginning, for example, where I can really play with how I breathe into the instrument, and then adding the little trill. And you can hear how that note is really longing here, almost like it sounds almost like a band. Let's listen to it again. Missed the mark. And you see this little phrase here. This little phrase here really plays with how I breathe more and more intensely into the instrument. You have a crescendo. That's also something very saxy, so to say. Which really is important, I think, when you're learning a new instrument, that you really get into the advantages of each instrument, and that you're not playing the same way that you would play on a guitar, for example. And I think I managed to do that quite well in that solo with all these little elements. There's another one of these flickers, for example here, yeah. And yeah, this last run is exactly what we were discussing last week, I think. It's a very fast run where I don't really think about the subdivisions. I just have my starting note. And I don't know, I end, I think, on the third of my target chord. So I had the beginning in mind, the end in mind, and just basically that's what I have in mind. And in the middle, it's just letting your fingers float along the scale. And that's something very saxy as well. Yeah, that doesn't work quite as good on the guitar, or maybe with a very good legato, which I don't have. Yeah, that's it for the solo.
6 Samus quotes sax. Yeah, I don't know. Did he saw the video? I don't think so. I can see. I don't have the reference. Sorry.
So let's listen to the whole solo again, and then let's jump into the guitar solo right after and see how well they blend together and how interesting of a texture that gives us. verse, basically, the background from the solo. And I love the transition between the two solos.
Yeah, me too.
And I think it's quite funny that in the end, the jazzier part is played by a distorted guitar and the metal part is played by the saxophone. It's kind of reversed roles. The sax is playing more metal, a lot more metal than the guitar here, and that's funny.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really good choice, actually.
I'm happy with the choice as well. Obviously, the other way around would have worked also, but I think it would have been hard to get the level of intensity the sax is giving with a guitar. Possible, of course, but we have to outdo yourself as well, I think.
Yeah. And then the guitar solo kicks in.
Yeah, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that. Just basically the background is the verse.
That's it.
So we have E-flat Lydian, which is an extremely nice playground for you, I think, and
Exactly.
G Dorian.
Yeah. So, well, basically the first phrase of the solo is just the E-flats, the Lydian E-flat scale. Just played. And the Lydian is kind of a major mode, but with an augmented fourth. And I don't know, I actually started the solo on that note. To really to put the emphasis on the Lydian thing.
Yeah, and as we were discussing earlier, the really cool thing about the Lydian scale is that even the most tense note in the scale, the sharp 11 that you play in the beginning of the solo, feels like a place of rest. And that's so great about the Lydian scale.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily want to go somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. You said it. This is the first phrase. And I'm using a lot of my tremolo bar, my flood rose, which gives a really smooth texture to the notes. And I don't pick any note on the beginning, just hammer-ons and put-offs. Hence the whole legato vibe. Something like that. And that's pretty much about it. Then we have the G Dorian chord. And when we hit that chord, I just play the natural E, which is the I don't know, the spicy note of the Dorian mode. And again, it put the emphasis on that note of the scale. And again, it's just the scale played. I didn't have actually anything to say about it. So maybe let's try to play the solo until that point.
Yeah. 4, 5, 6.
And then again, just a bit of Dorian G minor scale. And then just a fast run. Don't exactly know what I'm playing, to be honest, but there is some accents.
Whole note scale, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It has a whole note scale, you know, the scale when you just play whole tones. That's it.
Oh, we didn't play the same one.
and I tap some notes, and those notes are E, G sharp, and B, and it kind of anticipates the next chord that we will hear, which is E major or E7, the E dominant chord. And so I play the note of that chord just a bit before we are actually in that chord. So basically it's announce the next part of the solo.
You're anticipating the dominant chord.
Yeah, and then just playing the dominant Phrygian scale. That's how it's called.
Phrygian dominant, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Again, some diminished chords, which are basically inversion of the E7 chord.
Yeah, that's what we discussed. You can do it in the chord. You can superimpose that with arpeggios. That's what I think Malmsteen or that kind of guitar players are doing a lot.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, all that kind of fits into this dominant sound, yeah.
Which bring us to the not so resolved resolution that we mentioned it earlier, which basically is we are almost in a A minor chord. That's it. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't really have nothing more things to say.
I think you really play with the openness of that section really well.
Yeah.
Again, these modes, Lydian and Dorian, give a lot of freedom. As we discussed, there is no note that cannot sound like a place of rest, a place to end a phrase. And you did that perfectly well with basically just playing up and down the scale, highlighting certain color notes. Let's listen to it again.
To be honest, as I said earlier, I'm mostly a classical trained musician, so I don't really... I love listening to modal stuff, jazz and everything, but I don't have much theory knowledge. I mostly play by ear, actually. So this solo was improvised and just while messing around with all those scales, and nothing was really thought. It was spontaneous more.
Let's listen to it again.
Yeah.
I love also how you give that solo time to breathe. You played a lot like a saxophone player would, like playing a phrase, playing another phrase, breathing, and so on. And that's something maybe instruments that don't need to breathe sometimes forget. That sometimes you need to do phrases, like speak, and then you end your phrase, take your breath, and start another phrase, another sentence. And you did that perfectly well on the guitar. And as I said, you can easily get trapped on the guitar by never stopping playing phrases that never take a breath or whatever. And on saxophone you have to breathe. And I think you mirrored that pretty well with your guitar playing as well, giving the solo time to breathe.
Yeah, I think it's important actually. To take like someone like Steve Vai or all those guitar players really do phrases when they do solos. I think it's really important.
Totally. It's not a must. You can make things sound amazing without ever breathing, and that's also great about the guitar. But if you think about that, it can add a new dimension to your playing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go back to the final chorus. As we said, this whole section that we just listened to is a recapitulation, where the intro riff that serves as a backing track for the sax solo, the verse riff, which is used for the guitar solo, and then we have our final chorus. That isn't changed at all. Let's listen to it. Same stuff going on, except for the ending. Pay attention. interesting. In the ending, remember from the first solo, we didn't have really a resolution where we intended it. Instead of going, we're kind of going somewhere else. But in that case, listen again. We have indeed our resolution. We have it in the middle of the chorus. Listen to that. Which is happening in the middle and in the end this time. Let's listen to it. And the reason for that is that we don't need to go back to D like we did after the first two choruses. We did go back to this part in D, and we did go back to this part also in D. But this time we keep on the same harmony. We keep playing on the same harmony as the chorus in this next part. It's basically the same chords. So this part is still in A minor. And so it works really well to resolve our solo our chorus differently. And in that particular case, it makes that final chorus feel even more conclusive, even more final, because we don't end it with this kind of stuff that relaunches something else, that is the launchpad for something else. But in this case, this really feels like it concludes the whole song. And although it's not the end of the song, it's the end of the vocals, it's the end of this final chorus, and it's really nice to have it be conclusive rather than not conclusive and lead to something else. I hope you can see the difference. Let's listen maybe to the end of chorus 2, which is not conclusive. Leads to something else, while this chorus here is conclusive. And although we start with something else again, we start with kind of the same harmonic color here. And so there's really this place of rest at the end of the chorus that gives this final chorus a particular meaning. I hope you get what I mean. And to jump right into the next part, this here will basically use the same harmony as the chorus again. No.
This one goes to D actually.
Yeah, this one goes to D. I'm sorry. Yeah, because we are going to head back to something in D. So yeah, you see how you can use that last phrase to tell different stories, to go to different places.
An added pause in the middle of the word create. Yeah. Well, the first chorus goes creativity, and the last one goes creativity.
Yeah, again, it's more conclusive the last time. Let's listen to the vocals, maybe. There, I can speak again. It ends quite unresolved here, and let's compare that to. Yeah, really landing on the downbeat here. Just gives it a more resolved feeling. Let's compare it once again. Boom, something else. And there? The statement is made. No need for anything else to be said here. I mean, for the vocals. Yeah, nice catch. Yeah, the problem is I have to, if I want to have all the instruments, I would have to select them individually, which would be kind of complicated. But if I select something, I cannot speak. So I always have to remember to select this first, and then I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just me being like a monkey in front of a computer, like I always am. Trying to hit some buttons and make it work somehow.
We all are.
Some more than others. Definitely I'm more than others. Okay, let's listen to that nice guitar solo, guitar lead section. Again, it's the same harmony than the chorus. And what the guitars are doing basically is doing some kind of a jazzy colored lead. Where's this section?
The last one.
Here. Which guitars are we supposed to be looking at? This and this, okay. Monkey time. Yeah, that's this. Yeah, there we are. That's an insult to all monkeys out there, I'm sorry. Yeah, basically two guitars here. And if we have a look at the notes they are playing, it's basically all in the key of A minor, and more specifically they are highlighting the chord tones from the different chords that are going on. So for example, when you're doing this, really highlighting this kind of A over E kind of chord, or E sus, call it however you want. And that's going to be the case for all the notes being played. Everything is going to highlight different chords. For example, can you play the chords maybe while I play my part?
Yeah, I can try.
At least an approximation of the chords.
Yeah.
So here, I'm really playing either the root or the fifth, depends on how you see it, the chord. Here again, I'm playing some chord tones. Here I'm again playing this one here. And here when we land on the A, very important, I also try to target a note that belongs to the chord of A minor. So you see how this lead guitar really tries to highlight the chord tones. And that's also true for his guitar. And I think if you play the two guitars together, maybe let's try and do that, I think you can hear the underlying chord progression. And that's always something you should keep in mind when you play a guitar solo, or when you play any kind of solo. Basically, your notes should be enough to know what is going on behind, what the rhythm section is going. And let's play that together, and you will see we'll be able to hear the chord changes. And for example, when this note hits, we really are here. Let's try it. 4, 5, 6. Can really hear the resolution here, for example. If I stop here, you can clearly hear this kind of sound. Although there are not all the notes there, because obviously we are only playing two notes at a time with two guitars, it's enough to convey really enough harmonic information to know what's going on behind. And that's something very important when you write solos. Always try to put some chord tones on key moments, like here. That really implies that A minor chord behind. And other things that are very interesting about that, and what makes it kind of jazzy, are the additions of these kind of chromatic notes from time to time. For example, here basically what I'm doing is connecting two notes from the scale with all the notes in between. And what's important here is mainly my starting point and my ending point, and I can do whatever I want in between. Add in all the chromatic notes. I can even go more fancy with that kind of stuff, but what's really important when you add chromatic notes is the point where you start, and even more important, the point where you end. So basically what I'm doing is this, but by adding the stuff in between. And this is something very often used in jazzy stuff, and you can see we do it read kind of here, and I'm totally lost in what I was going to show you.
The next part, maybe.
Oh. Yeah, it's here. I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm sorry. Am I looking at the right guitar? Yes, I am. Yeah, it is here, but it's just written so small that I can't read it. That's why. Anyway, let's maybe play the part again and try to spot the instances where there are chromatic notes being played.
Okay, from the beginning?
Yeah. 4, 5, 6. And that's very interesting what's happening in the end. Remember, in the end, we do again this kind of switch to D. And it's also happening in the lead guitar. If I do this, it's a C sharp. It's present in this chord. And leads us back here.
Yeah.
And then I hit my point of resolution here. So again, very important which notes you pick in your lead guitar. It should highlight the harmony on its own. If I play this, it's enough to know that we are having this going on behind.
Yeah. And some people are leaving. Well, thanks a lot for coming. And yeah, we will try to do those kind of analysis in-depth analysis, technical way for all the singles we will release, which will be soon now.
Yeah, definitely. There's no, if you like that kind of stuff, if you want us more to dig into the production, more into the theoretical analysis, let me know what you guys liked, what you guys didn't like. Again, it's very hard for me to know what to focus on and what you guys know and what you guys are interested in. So definitely let us know. And yeah, thanks for coming. Thank you so much. We are nearly at the end now. There's only one thing I think we should mention still about this part. Maybe actually two things. One we mentioned already last time is, that on this part you really try to make your guitar sing with all the rakes, all the purely guitar-based techniques that you can use here, the slides, the bends and everything. Mm-hmm. Everything is used here. Let's do it again a little bit.
Yeah.
4, 5, 6. And the other interesting thing about the choice of notes and the choice of how the two guitars interact, we talked about it already in the opening riff, that the two guitars don't necessarily stay at the same distance. There is definitely some counterpoint going on. The two guitars moving in different directions, one guitar staying on the same note while the other is moving, the two guitars landing on different intervals. There's one instance, for example here, where I'm playing the same note twice, while Hugo is playing two different notes, and that really creates some motion. One guitar is not moving, the other is moving. Very interesting. Can we play maybe that part?
Yep.
Bar 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, right here. You hear it? Again from the beginning. Bar 3. 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you can see how the two guitars evolve differently from one another. And the most obvious part of that is when the two guitars are not even playing the same rhythm, which occurs on some rare instances like here, where the treble guitar is doing a hammer on and pull off, while the low guitar is doing mirroring the same kind of stuff but with a bend. And there are other instances like here where Hugo does a little run. It's totally unreadable. It's totally unreadable. And it will be again. Oh, that drives me crazy.
That's it. We here.
Yeah, there it is. We can read the notes. Yeah, while my guitar is doing that kind of stuff. So you see there's really counterpoint going on with the two guitars mostly playing the same rhythm, but not always. And that creates a nice little dynamic. So think about all of that, highlight the chord tones to really make it possible to understand the harmony without the harmony being played. Really try to use all the guitar techniques you know to make it really sing. That's really the point of this part, to really mimic the expressions you can have with the human voice or whatever, and use the guitar to the best of your capacity. And then think about all these counterpoint techniques. Have one guitar stay on one note, have the other move, or even have the guitars not always play the same rhythm. All that will create a lot of dynamics into your leads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Let's maybe just listen to the part here and just have a listen at different layers. Let's listen at what the rhythm guitar is doing. Basically just playing the fundamental pitch from each chord, along with the bass, just to make the sound a little fuller. And there's also some samples going on, the same as in the chorus, I think, which will also convey a lot of the harmonic information. And finally, we add the lead guitar. Here it comes. You can see how the drums are getting really intense as well, by playing double bass the whole way through. So it's really a very dense section overall. And then we head into the outro. Just listen to it one more time. Yeah, the toms are playing the accents from the chorus as well. So they're all fitting together using the same elements. And then we hit to that crushing outro.
Just for the previous section, the rhythmic guitar which goes. Is it played like with a single coil guitar, or maybe just a really percussive attack on the left hand?
Yeah, it's played with a very percussive attack. Yeah. Let's listen to that. And also, there's not so much gain.
Yeah, that's
again.
Not so much gain. That's what I thought.
Yeah, let's listen to it. So you can really hear the pick attack, yeah?
Yeah, that's it.
The transient, which make it come through really nicely, I think. And the fact that it doesn't have that much gain leaves space for the rest of the elements.
Yeah.
Leaves space for the synths, and especially for the lead guitar, obviously.
I see, yeah.
And let's jump into the outro. Well, the outro, I think you can recognize a lot of the different elements from the song. The first thing you maybe have noticed that the main theme is back in the guitars. Let's listen to the outro again. Try to spot this, for example. This is perhaps the most obvious element that's being reused here. Double the octave up to give it more space. And so we have our main rhythmical idea here. Basically, this part is a big recapitulation, as I said it. So there's this element being reused. Did you guys recognize the rhythm as well? This section here. Basically, just to get the guitar out of the way, the guitar is doing a palm mute. This chord here, basically a power chord with a flat 9, to give a really aggressive sound. And basically, the rhythm is the exact same one as we had in the part. I think I can try to let you listen to both. Yeah, this is the one. No, post. I don't know what. Post chorus. Let's compare that with this. So you see, it's the same rhythm, but again, used very differently. We used it to create something a little bit weird, but still really minimalistic. And in the first part, with very staccato played notes. And there, in the end of the song, we use it to create something extremely crushing, really heavy. Basically to destroy all of the harmonic beauty we brought in the part before. Suddenly, everything is smashed to the ground, and yeah, that's really to bring up this contrast. But you see, we used our main melodic motif. We used our rhythmical motif from the post-chorus. Only we used it differently to create a different musical effect. But that's not all. There are all the other elements that are reused, and that will happen in the drums. Let's listen to the drums. Let's listen to the drums. So now the right cymbal is following the accents from the guitar. But listen to what it's doing now. I hope you guys did recognize that. Let me compare that here to what is happening here. Not here, here. It's basically the same pattern on the right, but the kicks, and I think this is one of the most challenging parts to play on the whole record for Clément on the drums. The kicks are playing the part from the guitar, while the hands are playing the main rhythmical idea from the whole song, basically the part that we've been using since the very beginning. And the two together give this very, very interesting texture. Let's listen to it again. And so to give that four last bars a big recapitulation vibe, we used the main rhythmical motif mixed up with the other main rhythmical motif we have been using in other parts, and all of that paired with the main melodic motif. So yeah, this is why I say that this is kind of the recapitulation of everything this song contains, but to create really this crushing outro. Let's listen to it again and try to spot how the drum evolves from playing the same pattern as the guitars, evolves into playing the same rhythmical idea from the beginning. Let's listen to it. It's very subtle, but still, it creates a really nice texture, I think. Extremely confusing also, maybe. But yeah, really interesting, I think, to use that in that way. And just in terms of the other elements that are present there, I think the most obvious one, I think I saw someone in the chat mention this, is the throat singing, which was done by Hugo here.
Yeah, me.
I think it's the only vocals you did on the record, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That and the throat singing in another song as well, which you haven't heard yet.
Which is the same thing, but with another note.
How do I... I hate. I don't have my pad from the computer. I have this crappy mouse.
Or just use your pad if you struggle, maybe.
Ah, there it is. Here's the throat singing.
Yeah. So basically, again, don't really know what I'm doing, but I mostly practiced this for fun a few years ago because it's a really fun thing to do, and it appears it really fits really nice in some parts like this. I also did this on our first record on Scar Legacy of Hatred, if you recall correctly. Basically, what happens here when you use your the fourth chord, I think that's what it's called, the ventricular fold, something like that. I don't know. When like you clear your throat, it has a sound like this, and the goal is to find kind of a balance between that vibration and your breathing, and with a little bit of practice, it goes like this. And what happened here? Those chords vibrate at the half of the frequency of the note I'm singing, basically. When I sing this note, and then I add those chords, the result is a sound 1 octave lower, actually. And then just toggle with your mouth, tongue, and everything to get different harmonics, and that's pretty much what you hear on that part. Yeah, exactly. You said it better. I think it has to do with some Tibetan singing, the Gargira, something like that. But the Tibetan one, the main is to produce those overtones, those high notes that we hear, you hear the note produced with your vocal cord, and then the overtones that are adding. Yeah. I go with a try. I'm not really trained, but you get the point. And mixing this with a lot of reverb and everything, and I think it goes well with all that metal parts.
Let's listen to it. You did a lot of them and superimposed them, I think. And
there was a lot of different takes superposed to have one continuous sound.
The idea is also to get a stereo image.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to have different voices in the left and the right.
So it kind of sounds like a distorted guitar, actually. It has a lot of it does a lot of noise.
Let's see how it blends. And if I remove it, not this one. Ooh, how boring.
Yeah, but I think with all the EQs and everything, it covers a large part of the spectrum.
Yeah. Definitely, and it blends so well with the guitar. And to end it all, we have our main theme being played all alone again, with some kind of tremolo bar dive. It's very subtle in the end. Actually, it was not done with a tremolo bar. It was done by pitching the track down, actually, because that's something we decided during the mixing process.
And
now you play it like that.
Yeah, but when you pitch with your tremolo bar, actually, the strings does not pitch in the same distance. So in the end, you end up with a totally another chord, which I don't think it's the result we want. Some string change pitch more than others.
Absolutely.
So I think it was a better idea to did it in post-production.
So I think that's it for this analysis. I just want to give a little summary of what this was all about. I hope you got something out of it. But my main point of focus here was to show you a little bit how I think when I compose, what kind of tools I might use. And I must say that this is not something that I have to force into my composing style. It's just all these tools, I've learned them, I've practiced them, and they have become part of my vocabulary. So there is not anything purely cerebral about that. It's just the way I conceive music and everything, and there is nothing too fancy about that. And the main thing I want to demonstrate here is how you can use an idea, this rhythmical idea from the beginning, and make a whole lot of different ideas out of it. And that's exactly how I want to compose. I only have a few ideas at the basis of the song. For example, this rhythm here was how I started. Then I had this theme that I wanted to use throughout the song, and all of this ties the song together. You see, there's really only a handful of different elements, and they are used in a very different way. This rhythm idea I talked about is used to create something tribal, then something very open, and it is used like in the end to create some kind of polyrhythmic effect. And this main theme is used in very different contexts as well. And all these ideas blend together. I try to really get the best out of each of them. And you see, all that was achieved without ever changing a meter. We are all in 6/4, never throwing in some random new ideas throughout the song. It's just reusing the same stuff, arranging it differently. You see, there's a lot of arranging, a lot of synth stuff, a lot of guitar layers, a lot of vocal layers, and all that built into this song. And I hope you get my point, that while this song might sound pretty progressive, pretty intricate, pretty that you might get a lot of things out of it on repeated listens, find a lot of new details. At the basis of it, there are only a handful of these compositional ideas. And that's really something I want to encourage you to do, because it's not because you do prog metal that you can write songs that are kind of simple in their essence, but still really intricate and entertaining. And I hope you agree with what I say.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's become more and more my main focus as a composer, trying to milk really everything out of a single idea, to make everything sound coherent, because all these tools we're using, all these techniques we master on the instruments, are merely just that, tools to create songs, tools to create good songs if possible.
Yeah.
And songs that people can understand as well. If you're using a million ideas, throwing in as many notes as you can, as many flashy things as you can, maybe it's hard for people to understand what the meaning is you put into this song. And by using really these ideas to the maximum, rearranging them, I think maybe it helps to convey these kind of emotions and everything.
Yeah, and I think that's basically what Metallica did with Black Album. Every idea was dissected. It was you use it. I don't know. I don't remember which term you use, but yeah, every idea is used and modified. But in the end, those are the most memorable songs. But it doesn't mean that we have to stay. Doesn't mean we can't do interesting things out of it.
Definitely.
We can still experiment and everything with simple things, and end up with something both interesting and memorable.
And yeah, you should not force yourself to reuse only like one or two ideas throughout the song, but it's definitely a good exercise. So I would recommend it. Yeah, you took Metallica's Black album, for example. If you listen to a song like Enter Sandman, for example.
But everything started with the main riff, I think.
Then everything comes from that riff.
Yeah.
Everything flows so naturally. And this is obviously a kind of a pop metal example, but you can apply that to the most intricate kind of metal. And yeah, it makes the song extremely memorable and extremely strong and good. But yeah, I definitely encourage you to try and compose stuff. When you have a good idea, try to reuse it in different ways. For example, if you have a good idea, like a good chord progression or whatever, try to make it tell different stories. Same thing with the rhythm. If you have a killer rhythm in mind, try to make it tell different stories. Try to make it into, like I did, something tribal, then something melodic, epic, something open. Try to get the best out of these ideas.
And
I think.
Thank you very much, Ludo, for your 300 bits. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, well, anyway, we are open to any of your suggestions about what we could improve if we are to do sessions like these again, which I think we definitely will be with the new single that's coming up next.
Yeah, but we aware of the fact that those sessions are really dense. There's a lot of information. We hear since almost 3 hours, and yeah, really technical stuff. But we also do some more accessible things, like playing some sets with our instruments. But we are aware that this very session is very technical. But it will I don't know how to say it. The people who want to watch it again in detail, they could do that in the future on Twitch or on YouTube, since we will try to upload it on YouTube right after.
Yeah.
I did it. I finished my sentence.
Yeah, it's so hard. I don't know how some streamers manage to do like 8 or 10 hours in a row. We've done not even 3, and that was exhausting.
Yeah, because we are. Well, I don't speak my mother tongue. That's something, and we're discussing about some really technical stuff, I think, which demands a lot of focus. But yeah, still fun.
Hello, Nibatini. Yeah, you're fairly late. We just finished.
And I just
the
said,
analysis.
yeah, you can watch it again in a few days on YouTube. We'll try to make it.
So I think that's it for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Meanwhile, I want to remind you to follow the band on all the social media, and please also keep sharing our new single around. That's really the most helpful thing you can do at the moment, maybe to help us reach new people, because that's an extremely important time for the band right now. When we release new music, it's really the time we are in the spotlight, where the media talks about us. So anything you can do to help is much appreciated. Share it with your friends, even if it's just one person. Maybe that will get us a new fan and help us out. So please think about that. And on a side note, if you want to pre-order our record, you can head over to our store. I don't know if you have the link ready or whatever.
I try to do something.
There you can pre-order the new record, which drops on June 25th, along with some LPs, some T-shirts, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, you can also make donations on this Twitch channel if you want. That will help us a lot as well. And yeah, new record drops on June 25th, and maybe you will get the new single soon. I'm not giving you any date or what, but it might be sooner than you think. Thank you so much, Mexico Weed. Really appreciate you staying all along. It really means a lot. And I'm sure you will like the whole record if you like this song. It's a good it's basically a good summary of what this new record is about. A lot of dynamics, a lot of color, but still quite concise song structures and everything. Oh, thank you, Ludo.
Yeah, thanks you a lot.
So that's it. Time for some pasta, maybe, or something. It's 10
Yeah.
in the evening here in France, and I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, and thirsty as well.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, we hope to see you on upcoming sessions, on upcoming live shows, or just leave a comment on whatever social media you like. We read them all, and we are happy to answer whatever you have to say. Thank you so much, guys, and have a good night.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.